In 1259, the Mongol Empire shook to its core. Monk Khan had died. The vast plains echoed with uncertainty as generals and tribes wondered who would lead next. Hulagu in the west, Kublai in the east. Ambitions flared like wildfire across the empire. The once united Mongol hordes now faced a storm of power struggles. Minor uprisings erupted, and trade routes teetered on the edge of chaos. The Grand Kurultai would decide the fate of millions, but tension was palpable. Every tent, every banner, every horse reflected the weight of destiny. Tribal leaders whispered, debated, and plotted. Loyalty was tested like never before. The shadow of Genghis Khan loomed, demanding a leader worthy of his legacy. The empire stood at a crossroads: unity or civil war, glory or collapse. Before we dive into this epic saga, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to Saga of the Famous to follow every historical journey we share. In 1259, during the Mongol campaign against the southern Song, Monk Khan fell gravely ill. Despite intensive care from his physicians, his health rapidly declined. On August 11, 1259, Monk Khan passed away at the age of 50, inside the Mongol camp near Diaoyu Fortress. The news of his death spread swiftly across the empire, reaching every tribal leader and general. Soldiers mourned their great Khan, and the sudden loss created uncertainty throughout the vast Mongol territories. A power vacuum emerged, threatening the fragile unity that Monk had maintained. Hulagu in the west prepared to continue campaigns in Persia and Baghdad, while in the east, Kublai Khan held the front against the southern Song. Minor uprisings erupted along the borders, testing the administrative control established by previous Khans. The empire now faced a critical moment. Both Halagu and Kublai readied their forces, aware that the balance of power was fragile and the future of the Mongol Empire depended on their actions. After the Monk Khan death, the Mongol Empire was in trouble. Both in the east and the west, fights were happening, borders were tense, and tribes were testing each other's strength. The leaders knew they had to act quickly to keep the empire together. That's why the Grand Kurultai was called. Huge tents were set up across the plains. Every tribe's banner flew in the wind, and the sound of horses echoed in the distance. Tribal leaders, generals, and nobles gathered, carrying the hopes of their people. Monk Khan's sons and relatives, along with other powerful leaders, all presented their claims. Some discussions were calm, some were heated. Every tribe wanted to make sure their candidate had the upper hand. Loyalty, honor, and past achievements were carefully considered, and the shadow of Genghis Khan seemed to hang over every argument. The tension grew fast. Small fights broke out in the plains as rival factions tested each other. In the west, Hulagu's supporters tried to take control over distant territories. Arrows flew, horses charged, and it was clear power had to be earned, not given. Inside the tents, diplomacy continued. Alliances were made, promises were exchanged, and warnings were given. Some tribes stayed neutral, watching for the right moment. During this time, Kublai Khan saw how fragile things were in the empire, so he paused his campaigns against the southern Song. He knew that if he didn't attend the Kurultai personally, the eastern lands could fall into chaos. By being there, Kublai not only secured his claim, but also helped stabilize the empire and maintain control over key areas. This smart move showed his wisdom and kept the empire united during this tricky period. After months of discussion, it was clear the next great Khan had to be strong, respected, and able to unite the tribes. Finally, Kublai Khan, eldest son of Talyui and grandson of Genghis Khan, was chosen as the new Great Khan in each 1260 to 61. His election brought peace to the east and recognition from many tribes. Now Kublai could organize the administration, secure loyalty, and prepare for future campaigns. The empire had a new leader, one whose wisdom and strategy would guide the Mongols into their next era of power and conquest. After being declared the Great Khan in 1260, Kublai Khan faced a fragile empire. Although his claim was now official, the vast Mongol territories were still tense, and many tribal factions were unwilling to recognize his authority. To stabilize the east, Kublai immediately placed his trusted allies and generals in key regions, assigning them responsibility for administration and security. Administrative reforms were implemented quickly. Provincial governors were closely monitored. Tax collection systems were reorganized, and communication between the central command and local territories was strengthened. Kublai understood that loyalty could not be won through force alone. It required fair governance, justice, and strategy. Meanwhile, small clashes broke out in the eastern regions, as rival groups tested his authority. Yet Kublai managed these threats through diplomacy, military discipline, and his commanding presence. He even paused his campaigns against the southern Song, focusing entirely on uniting and stabilizing the eastern front. Despite Kublai's efforts, tensions in the empire continued to rise. Erik Bok, the youngest brother of Mongol Khan, refused to recognize Kublai's rule. Declaring himself the rightful Great Khan, Erik Bok rallied supporters from the central Mongol regions. The empire now stood divided, Kublai in the east, Erik Bok in the center. This dispute quickly escalated into a civil war that lasted several years. Large-scale battles were rare, but small skirmishes, strategic maneuvers, and shifting tribal loyalties shook the Mongol world. Tribal leaders and generals carefully chose their sides, weighing past allegiances and future interests. Kublai used his strong base in the east to consolidate power and strengthen alliances, while also trying to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. This period became a true test of the Mongol Empire's endurance. Supply lines, communication, and governance were under strain. Yet, through patience and calculated strategy, Kublai gradually gained the upper hand. By 1264, the balance of power was shifting firmly in his favor. In 1264, after years of conflict and political struggle, Erik Bok was forced to surrender. His defeat ended the civil war and allowed Kublai Khan to firmly consolidate his rule over the eastern territories. At last, his position as Great Khan was widely recognized across much of the empire. Meanwhile, Hulagu Khan in the west continued his campaigns and governance, but in practice, his domains had become a semi-independent khanate. Though nominally loyal to the Great Khan, Hulagu directed his own policies and wars. This marked the beginning of a new era. The Mongol Empire was no longer a single united force, but a loose network of semi-independent khanates, tied together under Kublai's nominal authority. After the Civil War, Kublai moved quickly to strengthen the empire's administration. Taxation was restructured. Provincial governors were kept under strict watch, and loyal generals were placed in key positions. The empire could breathe again, but now it was clear that its unity was only on paper. By the end of 1264, the Mongol Empire had emerged from the Civil War, but it was visibly divided. Kublai in the east, Hulagu in the west. The future of the empire now rested on the decisions and strategies of these powerful leaders. From 1260 to 1265, Hulagu Khan consolidated his rule over Persia, Mesopotamia, and Syria. He captured key fortresses, secured trade routes, and suppressed border uprisings. Under the Ilkhanate, administrative structures were strengthened, and Hulagu's military might ensured his firm control over the western territories. In 1265, after years of relentless campaigns and hard labor, Hulagu's health weakened significantly. Ultimately, in his camp in the western regions, he passed away suddenly due to natural physical decline. Historical accounts indicate that his death in February 1265 was the result of illness and natural causes, rather than battle. Thus, the great conqueror did not die on the battlefield, but from natural causes, and his passing created a tense situation across the western Mongol domains. Hulagu was buried near Lake Urmia, within the boundaries of the Western Ilkhanate. His grave became a symbolic site, commemorating his western conquests and authority. After his death, his son Kublai Khan assumed power. The Western Khanate remained practically semi-autonomous, though nominally under the Great Khan. Hulagu's military and administrative foundations maintained stability and provided a strong base for the new ruler. Kublai Khan began consolidating his rule in the east. He appointed his trusted allies and generals to key positions, ensuring control over different regions of the empire. Administrative reforms were implemented, the tax system was strengthened, and loyalty was secured with local governors. Minor skirmishes and local rebellions gradually subsided, as Kublai responded swiftly and effectively. Military outposts and supply lines were carefully organized, stabilizing and securing the eastern territories. Kublai also started planning military campaigns against the southern Song dynasty, but at this time, his primary focus remained on stability and administrative control in the east. Trade routes, particularly the Silk Road, were protected to maintain economic stability and secure commercial connections. In 1271, Kublai Khan launched full-scale military campaigns against the Song dynasty in China. He gathered armies from the eastern regions and began major offensives. He devised strategies against mountainous terrains and fortified cities, personally overseeing military leadership and planning. Several key towns and fortresses fell during these campaigns, breaking the morale of the enemy. The powerful cities of the southern Song resisted fiercely, but Kublai's organized and patient strategy enabled eventual victories. Particular attention was given to soldier training, supply management, and the protection of logistics. During his campaigns, Kublai also made agreements with local leaders to maintain peace in the conquered regions and facilitate administration. Some attacks lasted months, but careful planning and patience gradually weakened the Song dynasty. In 1279, after the final siege and battle, Kublai Khan defeated the Song dynasty and gained full control over China. Following this victory, he consolidated his power and administrative control in the eastern territories, establishing Mongol rule over China. Kublai's military strategy, leadership, and patience played a key role in establishing control over such a vast area. After the conquest, military and administrative systems were strengthened, trade routes were secured, and local governance was integrated under Kublai. He ensured the protection of trade routes, especially the Silk Road, and promoted commerce, stabilizing the economy and fostering cooperation within the empire. Schools, cities, and infrastructure were built to encourage cultural and economic development. The conquest of the southern Song and strong administrative control in the east made Kublai Khan a powerful and stable ruler. He secured military outposts, trade routes, and fortresses, ensuring internal stability. Under Kublai Khan's rule, the empire expanded significantly. Relations with Hulagu's semi-autonomous Western Khanate remained strong, while administrative reforms, military deployments, and local loyalties were firmly maintained across the central and eastern regions. Kublai Khan, who had firmly established his rule over the eastern Mongol Empire, gradually lost his strength after a long and demanding reign. On February 18, 1294, in Kanbalak, he passed away of natural causes. Though a man of great power, even he could not withstand the passage of time. He was laid to rest near the capital, at a site that reflected his legacy and the grandeur of his reign. News of his death sent ripples through the court, yet the strong administrative foundations he had built kept the empire steady. Following Kublai's death, the central authority of the Yuan Empire began to weaken, local powers grew, and the empire slowly moved toward fragmentation. Still, his wisdom, military prowess, and administrative legacy provided a strong foundation for future rulers, enabling them to maintain control over the vast territories of the Yuan dynasty. After the death of Kublai Khan in 1294, the throne passed to Temür Khan. He represented a generation that no longer sought to conquer vast new lands, but instead aimed to preserve what the great conqueror had built. Temür gave less attention to expansion and more to governance, kept provincial governors under control, and safeguarded the trade routes, especially the Silk Road ensuring that wealth and commerce continued to flow through the empire. Temür's style of rule was one of preservation. He upheld the administrative structures established by Kublai and maintained unity through careful diplomacy within the court. His reign did not see major campaigns of conquest. Instead, he suppressed small uprisings, quelled border disputes, and focused on keeping the empire's machinery running smoothly. Yet, after 1300, the first clear signs of decline began to appear. The costs of maintaining such a vast realm, the distance of frontier provinces, and the growing autonomy of local rulers weakened the central authority. Heavy expenditures, corruption within the bureaucracy, and pressure on the tax system strained the empire's resources. The once disciplined military began to lose its edge, and provincial lords slowly shifted their loyalties toward independence. It was a quiet decline, not marked by dramatic defeats, but by fading strength, economic burdens, and the slow erosion of central power. Temür fulfilled his duty as best he could. He gave the Yuan dynasty temporary stability, but the cracks within the system could not be repaired. In 1307, Temür Khan passed away. With his death, the transitional era that had preserved Kublai's legacy came to an end. His departure exposed the empire's growing weaknesses and left future rulers to face mounting challenges.